Hello. So I just want to put the link on the screen. And I want to put the link in the notes. And then we'll get started. Okay, so what are we doing? We'll start here. What is white self-respect bankruptcy? Does white male self-respect exist? So what is white self-respect bankruptcy? Well, to be bankrupt of something means you don't have it. If you're going bankrupt in currency, it means you have no money. If you're going bankrupt in self-respect, it means you don't have self-respect. And I'm suggesting that the vast majority of, we'll just say white males, because that's what I am, that's what most people would identify me as, are suffering from self-respect bankruptcy. And it's very simple to figure out. First, we'll define self-respect. Self-respect, the source, practice, and application of awareness and appreciation, and the competence of being oneself. We can delete this. It's not necessary. And the competence of being oneself. Hello, viewer. The link's at the bottom of the screen there. Just come on. We're having a discussion about what is white self-respect bankruptcy and does white male self-respect exist? And they left. So, self-respect, the source, practice, and application of awareness and appreciation, and the competence of being oneself. So, here's the list. For every single interaction, I think that this is the only self-respecting way to have a conversation with a fellow human being. And that is to ask these questions of yourself first, and then of your interlocutor, the fellow human being you are interacting with. Question 1. What dictionary are we using for this interaction? And that needs to be asked for multiple reasons. That's not what I wanted. I wanted it here. Format, bullet numbering. It actually gets the interaction partners on the same page. It actually gets everybody on the same page. It excludes every single that's not what I wanted to say. Why is that bullet point different? It gets the interaction. It also it increases possibility of accurate, clear communication. It removes every single claimed God. So it takes every single God off the table, because every single dictionary is descriptive and is filled with human words, human symbols, human letters, human definitions. There's not one that is provided by a deity. So as soon as your fellow interlocutor provides a dictionary provided from their claimed deity, then we can talk about a God being on the table. But until that time, every single God is off the table. Every single quote unquote special text is just a regular text, just like Harry Potter or Tao Te Ching, or it shows self-awareness. It shows appreciation. Shows self-awareness and awareness of other. And that goes for this. I guess it wants me to say others. And it goes for this as well. It shows sympathy. AKA prefrontal cortex understanding. Next question. Question 2. Nope. Please, what are your surroundings? What this does, again, actually, oops, bump this down to this size. That's why that's bigger, because that can be bumped down to 11. And this can be bumped down to 11. Actually gets the interaction. I spelled surroundings wrong. Oh, I forgot a question mark. Interaction partners on the same, in the same, not on the, in the same reality. So in other words, if you're having a conversation with a friend and a fellow human being, and you're actually in the same room, and one describes the room as being safe, and the other describes the room as not being safe, you're not on the same page. You're both less safe. I'm going to add increases interdependent safety. Individual and interdependent safety. Right? Actually gets the interaction partners in the same reality. It increases individual and independent safety. Again, if you're two people are in the same space, and one says the space is safe and the other says the space is not safe, they're not on the same page, they're not in the same reality, so they're both less safe. Assesses the ecosystems, biometrics, biometric data. Right, in the optimal scenario, both people have biometric measures on. They're measuring their heart rate variability, their pulse, their O2 saturation percentage, yada yada. If there was a glucose, all those things. So now you could set a stage, right? You could take a baseline, and then if all of a sudden one of the interlocutors' heart rate jumps up, conversation stops. We re-describe the surrounding, the heart rate drops down, and now you can continue the conversation. Because as soon as that heart rate, the resting heart rate or heart rate variability, the heart rate variability drops or the heart rate rises, right? Then there's no reason to continue talking because the brain is literally shut down. There are now stress hormones coursing through, and stress hormones shut off the prefrontal cortex. Prefrontal cortex becomes part of the limbic system and is there just for rationalizations now. Post hoc rationalizations. In the presence of stress hormones, the prefrontal cortex is just a survival mechanism. It can't govern. It can't do emotional regulation. It doesn't do the executive functionings. Question 3. Bump this up to 21. What is your inner voice self story? What is your inner voice self story? The most important story in the universe. Bump this down to 11. And we'll IVSS is the most important story in the universe for the two people interacting. Because if one person is telling a frenemy story and the other person is telling a friend story, there's a disconnect there. And this story you tell yourself. The story, I'll give you the story you tell yourself about yourself. Whose voice tells that story to you? What manner the story is told to you by the voice? That should be a question mark. I don't want that. Most important story in the universe. When I'm speaking with a fellow human being, I know what my inner voice self story is. I've worked that out. I've practiced it. It's habitual. It rolls off my tongue. Even in the presence of stress hormones, when the prefrontal cortex shuts down, my inner voice self story is practiced and habitual. So it works in the presence of stress hormones. 100%. I'm always curious because the most important story in the universe is the story of the individual I'm speaking with, my interlocutor. If their story is not being told by themselves, right? So if whose voice is telling it? If it's the mean girls from high school, if it's the mean boys, the bullies, if it's their parents' voice, if it's the priest or imams or rabbis' voice that's telling the story, I'm less safe, right? Because that's not the reality. The reality is, well, it is the reality in that person, but them not knowing their own voice is dangerous. I don't want that. I don't want that. How do I get that one? I think I do this. I think I do this. I think I do this. I do this. I do this. I do this. Nope. Yep. There. Inner voice self story is the most important story in the universe. And what's this? There was one more bullet point. Actually, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Friend. Frenemy. Enemy. That's the three options. And me. Right? That's the three options. Is it a friend? Is it a frenemy? Or is it an enemy? The vast majority, it's this one here. All right. The enemy is more more rare than frenemy, and the friend is a rarity. My voice is friend because that's what I practiced. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. There. And the last one, there was one more point I wanted to inner voice self is the most important story in the universe. A measure of individual and interdependent safety. Right? It's a measure of if your fellow interlocutor doesn't know their inner voice self story, you're less safe. If you're less safe, they're less safe. Right? So knowing your inner voice self story facilitates interdependent safety. And question 4, and this one I'd forgotten for a while, but I've finally remembered it. And we're going to include it here. Bump this up. Question 4. Maybe these should be colons. Question 4 is what are your emotional attachments? What are your emotional attachments? Memories, stories, which are one and the same. Actually, I'm just going to do this. Identities, which are also stories and memories, but that falls under that. Emotion, stories. What do we put in there? Memories, stories, identities. Whoobies, security blankets, coping mechanisms. Coping mechanisms. For that, we'll put rabbit's feet. Blankets. Religion. What are your emotional attachments? Very important. Because most people, in fact, I'm going to put one here. I'm going to say words and their, oh, no, it might be that one, their meanings. Words and their meanings. Most people are emotionally attached to the meanings of words. If my interlocutor and my interaction partner and I, we just decide to switch the meaning of cat and dog, I can go all day long as I know that the other person is going to stick to those rules, right? Maybe we should add here, actually gets the interact on the same page, increases possibility of accurate, clear communication because it stops equivocation, right? Stops equivocation. Why did it do that? Stops equivocation. Right? So when you know you're emotionally attached to words, right? Then your interlocutor partner, if you say virgin means virgin, right? And Mary was a virgin. Well, then virgin doesn't mean virgin because Mary wasn't a virgin because she had a child. She couldn't birth a child and not be a virgin. And again, remember, I've asked what dictionary. If you haven't provided a dictionary, your God's off the table. Mary was not a virgin if she gave birth to Yeshua. It's just the way it is, right? So when you answer question 1 with, do I have my dictionary in here? Yes, I do. with, no, that's Bible. Oh, I don't know where, oh, my dictionary's down there. I'll put this down here. Merriam-Webster. How do you get there? If you answer the question with Merriam-Webster, guess what? Your God's off the table. So, again, what is white self-respect bankruptcy? It's just like when you're with money. If you're bankrupt with your bank account, meaning there's no currency, there's no funds there, same thing. If your bankruptcy is self-respect, means you have no self-respect. And I'm suggesting, and I'm asking the question, does white male self-respect exist? I know it exists because I have it. And I can back it up because I provided the most accurate definition of self-respect that's ever been suggested. The source, practice, and application of awareness and appreciation and the competence of being oneself. I'm competent at being me. I'm competent at being me. Right? Because I know what my inner voice self story is. The most important story in the universe. And the story that I tell myself is that I respect myself. I enjoy being me. I'm complete. I like the guy I see in the mirror. I'm at utter and total peace with myself and existence. I am the change I wish to see in the world. That's the story I tell myself. The voice is friend. It's my own strong, authentic, genuine, honest voice. It's my voice. It's friend. Because why would I kick myself in the nuts? I don't kick myself in the nuts because I practice the inverse golden rule. What manner of story is told to me by that voice? It's told to me by my best friend with care, patience, appreciation, curiosity, awareness, care. I already said care, and generosity of spirit. I know what my inner voice self story is. I've practiced it. It's habitual now. So I know that white male self-respect exists because I am an embodiment of it. My question to you is, do you follow through? Do you have self-respect? Do you look at your fellow human beings and start every single sentence, every single interaction with your fellow human beings with the statement, my fellow human being? Because that's what I do. Because again, now it's habitual. I see a fellow human being and that's what I start. I'm not calling them names or breaking them down. And I'm practicing curiosity. Who is that fellow human being? What dictionary are we going to be using for this interaction? And I ask it every single time because I don't know. I'm not assuming that fellow human being is the same if I meet them again tomorrow because I don't know what's happened in the meantime. They could have had a stroke. They could have had a really bad day. They could have a brain tumor pressing on their amygdala. Like Charles, I forget his last name, Texas guy down in Texas back in the 60s, 70s. So it totally changed their personality. Phineas Gage. So I know white males, Caucasian, cisgender males, which is what I am. I know it's possible for them to have self-respect because I've created this document, and I've created the other document I'll be reading in a minute. So nobody showed up, so I will go over to reading the other document, and I'll try to make a video again tomorrow and see if I can get somebody to show up and actually start having this conversation, get this ball rolling. But for now, we're going to continue on with, I guess I should show this. With the white paper, Project Non-Suffering, Unifying Fields Equation. Notice it's unifying. We're in the process of unifying them. Right? Here's the equation. Mo is equal to 0 plus G. That's the equation. If you see the little t there, the little t is right here, right? Down here, equals 0 plus G. That's the initial reference frame plus gravity. right? The big T, meaning identity, me, is equal to 0 plus G. That's the pathway to inner peace. We'll go this way, and where were we? We were at the trunk. We finished roots, the 4 fundamentals, and then we go into the trunk. Trunk matter, the existence logic gate, ELG, existence logic gate, power scale, a voltage audit of reality. An existence logic gate, ELG, is either open on or closed off. Opening an ELG takes energy. Period, double space. In this framework, existence is not an abstract state. It is an active load on the now moment. That should be capitalized. The now moment. To quote unquote open a gate of complexity requires a specific metabolic or nuclear wattage. Level 3, the identity anvil, mass bearing integrity. Entities, minerals, rocks, and inorganic matter. Power source, nuclear atomic flux, strong and weak nuclear forces. Functional state, this is the baseline power draw required to hold matter together. It sustains the fundamental logic gate identity, A is equal to A, non-contradiction, and why didn't I finish that? Non-contradiction, A, insert equation, that one, oops. That should be capital A, go back here, not A. And exclude the middle. Equation, that one, I believe, oops. No, that one, not A. Without the continuous quote-unquote work of the strong force at T equals 0, the node possesses no structural integrity and ceases to exist. Level 4, the awareness gate, detection and execution. Entities, viruses, basic biological nodes. The power logic. A, virus possesses the power logic. I think this is supposed to be life. A, virus possesses the internal power, molecular / chemical potential to exist, A is equal to A, and to remain aware, detecting the substrate / not self. The constraint, it is a quote-unquote read-only node. It has no hardware to recognize the now moment, but it lacks the internal work function to trigger its own source code. The parasitic strike, it only transitions from quote-unquote awareness to quote-unquote action when it docks with the external power source. It hijacks the host's ATP ionic flux to run its reproduction sequence. Without external power, it remains a level 4 sentry, a quote-unquote level 4 sentry, existing and aware, but biologically locked. Level 5, the sentience flux, the integrated circuit, A underscore ELG squared. I gotta figure out how to say that correctly because it's not the ELG that's squared. A underscored ELG, the whole thing squared. Entities, slime molds, and higher ordered life. Power source, ionic electrical integrated circuit. I didn't want double space there, I want that. Ionic electrical integrated circuit, internal ATP. Functional strike, open sentience, A underscore ELG, the whole thing squared. The awareness of awareness. This level requires a self-sustaining internal power grid to fuel the computational search space, quote unquote. The node is no longer just reacting, it is calculating. This requires constant ionic flux to maintain now information pattern recognition assessment. Now information pattern recognition assessment, NIPRA. Level 6, the consciousness protocol, the synchronized network. 2A underscored ELG, the whole thing squared. Entities, humans and social animals. Functional stripe opens consciousness to a underscore ELG, the whole thing squared. Survival through interdependent safety. This is the highest now moment power draw, quote unquote, now moment power draw. It requires sufficient metabolic overhead to not only monitor the cell, but to achieve metric parity with other nodes. It is the energy used to maintain the quote unquote survival tense across the collective network. Hardware, the prefrontal cortex cog. The accounting logic. The prefrontal cortex is not a quote unquote command center. It is a high resolution biological capacitor. It is designed to hold a high density charge of now information, data, knowledge, and Dyke. This allows the ecosystem to quote unquote pause the reactive signal of the limbic system level 4 to achieve metric parity level 6. If the energy budget is low, the capacitor cannot hold the charge and the ecosystem quote unquote browns out or into reactive survival. I don't actually like that. Not life equals minerals, not aware of self and thus not self. Life, A, discrimination engine, organic materials, awareness of self and thus not self. Proteins, amino acids, nucleic acids, DNA, RNA, structural matter, lipids, fatty acids, glycerolipids, glycerophospholipids, sphingolipids, sterols, perennials, saccharides, polyketides, carbohydrates, glucose, fructose, saccharose. I am aware I exist. A, one thing exists. Initial reference frame, T equals 0. You are aware you exist. A, two things exist. Initial reference frame, T equals 0. Others are aware they exist. A, more things exist. Initial reference frame, T equals 0. I am aware of awareness of my existence. It's capital G. Nope. Yep. I'm aware of awareness of my existence. A underscore ELG, the whole thing squared, and then the equation because the T, right? Initial reference frame. Now it's initial reference frame plus the identity. I think that should be changed though. I'm aware I exist. One thing exists, initial reference frame. Why is that not that? I'll just think on that. Did I do the other one? You are aware of awareness of your existence. Again, that's a sentience. Maybe I should do this. There's a better way of doing that, that's for sure. Best way of doing that like this. Space, cursor, boom, boom. I'm aware of your awareness, of my awareness. Sentience. To sentience. Synchronization. Which is equal to consciousness. I don't like that. I didn't like that. Which is equal to new equation. Boom, boom, boom. To a ELG squared. interdependent. I'm not sure why that's there, but I got to change that sentence. Do this, Control C. This comes here. Control V. I'm not sure I like this here. Conclusion. The transition from quote-unquote static matter to a quote-unquote discrimination engine is grounded in the law of identity A is equal to A and the gravitational transaction Mo is equal to 0 plus G. SAP, biology, ionic flux, electricity, chemicals, sodium, potassium, water, oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, iron. Mylene, metabolic waste, the Glanure counting injunction. Context is chemical. Context is chemical. There is zero difference between a memory and a dream. They are the same now moment entropically gated metabolic ionic work function. The variable, the circadian ultradian rhythm determines the chemical exchange rate, quote unquote. The ledger, a quote unquote trauma pattern is simply a high stress chemical signature being read by an quote organal structure by an ecosystems organ Hmm. That has been physically biased towards threat detection. Conclusion. Biology is chemistry is an expression of existence logic. A is equal to A. A is not equal. A cannot be both not A and not A, and A has to be either A or not A. Matter, space-time, and the four fundamental forces / fields: gravity, electromagnetism, and the strong, weak nuclear forces. The chemical fluidity injunction. The law of context. No chemical, hormone, neurotransmitter, vitamin has a singular role. Its quote unquote work function is a product of the now moment rhythmic coordinate. The variable ledger. The ecosystem utilizes the same quote unquote players, chemicals, to perform different tasks, quote unquote, defend, repair, acquire, optimize, based on the circadian, ultradian, and infradian governor. The result, existence, logic, is a laminar flow of chemical transitions. Quote unquote disease and quote unquote suffering are redefined as rhythmic desynchronization using the correct chemical at the wrong coordinate. Branches, body, ecosystem, the iceberg, Timothy D. Wilson's iceberg analogy. Organs, liver, heart, lungs, kidney, thyroid, intestines, brain. Bullet point, sentience. A underscored ELG, the whole thing squared. Awareness of self and others, awareness of self. Self-powered computational processing powers. NIPRA, now information pattern recognition assessment. Consciousness, 2A underscored ELG, the whole thing squared, or A underscored ELG, the whole thing squared, with a bidirectional harpoon arrow, A underscore ELG, the whole thing squared. Sentience to sentience synchronization, 2A underscore ELG squared. Signal alignment with the tribe, A squared underscored ELG, bidirectional harpoon arrow, A underscored ELG squared, the whole thing to the n power. That's the tribe, aka consensus. Consensus increases individual and tribal safety. Enter dependent. Got an ant on the wall. Safety. Tribal independence increases survival for all individuals. Of the tribe. I think that's systems. Circulatory, nervous, limbic, endocrine systems, neurotransmitters, dopamine, serotonin, neuroepinephrine, GABA, GABA, glutamate, hormones, adrenaline, epinephrine, insulin, cortisol, estrogen, testosterone, thyroid hormones, growth hormones. Conclusion: life, sentience, A underscore DLG squared, consciousness, A underscore DLG squared, interdirectional double harpoon arrows, A underscore DLG squared, and the tribal consensus, A underscore ELG squared, double harpoon or interdirectional harpoon arrows, A underscore ELG squared to the nth power, are all expressions of existence logic. A is equal to A. A cannot be both A and not A, and A has to be either A or not A. Matter, space-time, and the four fundamental forces / fields: gravity, electromagnetism, and the strong and weak nuclear forces. Leaves, psychology, the mind, the snowball in the Timothy D. Wilson's iceberg analogy. Humans are good at what we practice. Inner voice self-story. Inner voice self-story, this IVSS. The story you tell yourself about yourself. Whose voice tells that story? Your own voice, others' voices, parents' voices, spouses' voices, mean kids' voices, priests. The manner in which the story is told to you, friend me. Oh, I should copy that for the other one. Let's do this. Let's do that. Personal, relative, initial reference frame. You wonder why I put relative in there? Because it makes you think of Einstein. Opinion, worldview, religious, scientific. Maybe I should also put secular. Secular, perspective, beliefs, thoughts, tribal / social pressures / censors, biases, disproportionate weight, prejudice, or inclination for or against an idea, person, or group, usually in a way considered unfair. Heuristics, mental shortcuts, rules of thumb, or intuitive strategies that simplify decision-making and problem-solving. Stories, words, representations of things that exist to facilitate sentience, A underscore ELG, the whole thing squared, and consciousness, A underscore ELG squared, and understanding, comparison, / there was a word I wanted to use. What was the word I wanted to use? Started with the D. Started with a D. What was the word I wanted to use? Not decoherence. Not distinction. Differential. Differential. Understanding is the comparison of things with existence logic. I think I have to change this soon. The N400 ERP biometric, a spike in brain activity occurring approximately 400 milliseconds after a semantic glitch, quote unquote. This is the physical, quote unquote, error message generated by the ecosystem when a consensus label word violates the law of identity. A is equal to A. Example, hearing, the refrigerator climbed the tree, triggers an N400 spike because a quote unquote refrigerator cannot occupy a climbing quote unquote coordinate in existence logic. Falsification anchor. This biometric signal proves that the language is not arbitrary. It is a metabolic tool that must align with the capital T equals 0 substrate to achieve laminar flow. Memories, now moment, entropically gated metabolic ionic work function events determined by the chemical composition, chemical signature, and organ structures of an ecosystem. Calibration tool used to weigh the NIPRA, which is the now information pattern recognition assessment. So that when a similar pattern appears at t equals 0, the ecosystem reacts faster, increasing survival chances and safety. I should put the now and I information there. And it doesn't put me back where I was. Where was I? I wasn't there. I wasn't there. That was seeds. I hadn't made it to seeds. Empathy, sympathy. I hadn't made it there. Here. Here. Calibration tool. So when a similar pattern appears at t equals 0, the ecosystem reacts faster, increasing survival chances and safety. A safety setting, not a history book, are not exact representations of events and experiences that have happened. Increasing safety and survival through learning, the mechanism that prunes less metabolic efficient neural pathways and strengthens more metabolic efficient neural pathways. A now moment experience / event using now moment sodium levels, now moment potassium levels, and now moment ATP levels. Music, an emotional experience. Art, emotional experience. Dance, emotional experience. Physical dopamine release mechanism. Actually, that could be said for art as well. And it can also be said for music. Empathy. Automatic tribal feeling a tribe member's emotional state as one's own emotional state. Hormones, mirror neurons. Creates a tribe member versus a not tribe member. Evolutionary mechanism for survival, facilitating and increasing tribal coherence by mirroring a fellow human's emotional state. Tribe, single partner, friend, colleague, intimate partner, family group, partners and children, parents and children, aunts and uncles, nieces and nephews, cousins, etc. Community up to 150 members. Emotions. Interpretive stories put on an ecosystem's chemical composition and brain structure. Chemical composition, chemical signature, and organ structures. In the context of the now moment, the ecosystem finds itself in. Sympathy, manual, executive. Thinking about a fellow human being's emotional state and dampening your own empathic evolutionary mechanism to understand a fellow human being's emotional state creates an individual from a tribe member. Prefrontal cortex, newest evolutionary hardware and mechanism to govern metabolic resource allocation, regulate dopamine, perform executive functions, and emotional regulation for survival in the absence of stress hormones. In the presence of stress hormones, reverts to being part of the limbic system. In the absence of stress hormones, it assesses a fellow human being's emotional state by reducing simulation of the perceived emotional state and increasing existence logic to understand. Emotional regulation / intelligence. Emotions must already exist in order for them to be regulated. Scientific inaccuracies when the word empathy, quote unquote, is used to describe emotional understanding. Emotional attachments. A deep, often subconscious, mental, emotional bond with, and I should copy this. I should put it on the other document. Emotional attachment, a deep, often subconscious, mental and emotional bond with people or objects that foster feelings of safety, comfort, and security. Generational baggage, stories, memories, families, sports teams, religion, rabbit's feet, and special socks. Sympathetic attachment, a supportive care-oriented connection where one person recognizes and feels for another's distress from a distance with understanding, sympathy, not emotions, empathy. Interdependent safety, understanding humans are social animals, understanding humans need each other for survival, understanding that there is only interdependent safety for survival. Conclusion, psychology is the executive governance of metabolic efficiency. The mind, the snowball, is the lagging auditor of the ecosystem. Its primary function is to navigate the personal relative initial reference frame and the inner voice self story to ensure the survival of the trunk, quote unquote, trunk and branches. The logic, if the inner voice self story is an enemy or frenemy, the ecosystem generates waste heat, Q, through dwelling, regret, and anxiety. This is a failure of existence logic, attempting to allocate metabolic resources, ATP, sodium, potassium, to coordinates that no longer possess mass, T less than 0. The practice, because humans are good at what we practice, quote unquote, practicing self-respect and the inverse golden rule optimizes the now information pattern recognition assessment for T equals 0 accuracy. The shift, by utilizing the prefrontal cortex to move from automatic empathy tribal to executive sympathy individual, the human ecosystem transitions from being a quote unquote tribe member to a quote unquote fellow human being. The result, this executive transition terminates this quote unquote search space glitch of self-inflicted suffering and creates the sympathetic attachment necessary for interdependent safety. To understand the mind is to compare its stories against the substrate of existence logic at T equals 0. The meaning of life syllogism, survival. Major premise, existence logic, A is equal to A at T equals 0, is the only coordinate where the work for survival occurs. Minor premise, language is the protocol that syncs multiple biological nodes to that coordinate to achieve interdependent safety. Conclusion, therefore, any language that promotes lush, quote unquote, simulations, the three-pile glitch, in other words, where there's a past, present, and future, 3 piles versus the now moment, which is only 1 pile. So the presentism, a theory of time, where there's 1 pile, and that's what you can access, as compared to a past, present, and future pile, which is 3 piles, which is B theory of time, which is there's not enough energy in the universe for that. Conclusion, therefore, any language that promotes quote unquote lush simulations of 3-pile glitch is an evolutionary sabotage. The 1.0 G engineering standard is the restoration of the quote unquote survival tense. To understand the mind is to compare its stories against the substrate of existence logic at T equals 0. And that's where we'll end for today, boys and girls. Thanks for stopping by. Nobody stopped by. One guy did, but okay, bye.